Good boy, Tucker.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
Hey.
Welcome.
Work smarter where you want.
Consistency is key.
And remember, if it's not in Redtail, it never happened.
This is learning at its most fun.
Thank you for joining in on another weekly webinar that we have here. Today is a very specific topic, and we're going to be covering how to handle multiple rep codes. So thank you again for joining us. My name is Catherine. I'm one of the trainers here at Redtail Technology. But today I'm, where's Waldo? So good news, you found me. So I'm here for you that today. We're really into Halloween over in Redtail, so you might see some kind of creepy, some very creative people kind of popping in. Don't be alarmed. But I know, knowing them, there's probably something cooking up. I wanted to give you that warning. But we'll go ahead, we'll hop in. Today's topic is not a very difficult one to grasp and really to implement. It's just one of those things of, hey, I'm not sure where to put it. We're going to show you where we kind of recommend and how to get started. So I'm going to hop on into our system now. Here's our lovely Redtail system for today. And I feel like I always start with the webinar in our managed database list, but that's actually where we're going to start again today. And to get there, we're going to start by clicking our name in the top right-hand corner. So I'm logged in as Tucker. I'm going to click on Tucker here. And I'm going to scroll on down until you see Manage Your Account. So while this is kind of loading here, the one thing I do kind of want to remind you on, and I'm sure you've heard me say this probably like 300 times now, but you do just have to make sure that you are an admin for the managed database list. So if you're looking in the Manage Your Account section and it ends right here and the last thing you see is that Manage Files section, that unfortunately means you're not an admin. That's not a bad thing. It's not like, they're purposely blocking you out of that. No, it's usually if you have multiple people in your office, we just don't want to give everyone actual access to admin. Otherwise, you'll have too many fingers in the pot kind of fixing things and changing things. Then all of a sudden, your database is completely different. You're like, what happened? So it's okay if you're not an admin. Just make sure you know who is the admin. So again, we're going to start by clicking on our managed database list. And then once we're here, I do want to point out that literally anything that you see on the right-hand side, this is all completely customizable for you. Obviously, today we're not going to focus in on every single thing, but we're actually going to start off with, under the contact specifically on the right-hand side, Servicing Advisor. So this is one thing, it's kind of a, hey, when do I use Servicing Advisor versus Writing Advisor? I feel like I'm using it wrong. Everyone kind of does it differently. I keep hearing things. Honestly, I'm hoping I'm not the first one to tell you this, but if I am, if it makes sense to you on how you've been using Servicing Advisor or how you've been using Writing Advisor, stick with it. If you use it differently than someone else and it makes sense though, it's not wrong. I can honestly say that. I always hear they're like, well, I use it for this. That must be wrong. I'm like, well, not necessarily. Because you might hear that Servicing Advisor, that's like the main point of contact for that particular client, which is perfectly fine. You might hear Servicing Advisor as that like secondary point of contact. Again, perfectly fine. It's how you want to view it. But just know that this list on how we put it in here is 100% customizable. So in here, I can come up to this add button at the top, click on the add, and then I could start typing in that name. So if I start typing in my name here, I'll add myself as a Servicing Advisor, click on Add Servicing Advisor, and then I'll instantly be able to use that. Now that's one thing I do want to remind you, because I feel like in this day and age, everything's kind of different. Anything that you add to this list is going to be available for you to use instantly. So it's not one of those things like log back in, refresh, wait 24 hours. No, it's nothing like that. Once I've added it, I can always go back into my record and immediately add myself as that Servicing Advisor. So that's how we'll do a servicing. And then again, kind of the doppelganger, the fraternal twin, however you want to kind of look at it, the Writing Advisor is that secondary level. Again, if you're using this as the main point of contact, perfectly fine, stick with it. If you're using this as the secondary or like the junior advising location, again, stick with it. It's what works best for you. If this really is one of those where you've got someone who specifically does do all the writing for policies and plans, then this one's very obvious. That is going to be the Writing Advisor. But if that isn't how you kind of organize or associate contacts with, again, you can use it where it's servicing as the main, writing as the junior, or vice versa. It's whatever makes the most sense to you. And similar to how we just did the servicing advisor, when we come up here to click add, we can add literally any name we want in here. So if I'm looking here and I'm like, oh, you know what? We're actually missing, looks like, we're missing our coworker, Sarah. We can add Sarah in here. And then that way she's part of this writing advisor for me to pick that list. And again, we can add here multiple sittings. So if you're in your system and you're like, I've got absolutely no one, no worries. As you can see, it's very easy to add. It's very instant. So you can always just click on that add, and then you'll have that option immediately from that drop down. So those are our first two that I kind of like to start off with. Again, I keep stressing it, but I do want to point out that these fields are going to be entirely up to you on how you actually label servicing advisors versus writing advisors. So I'm actually going to stay on this page still because the other two items that we're going to talk about specifically with rep codes is actually keywords and user-defined fields, which are also right over here on the right-hand side. So I'm going to actually start off with keywords. I'm going to make recommendations. It's up to you on how you want to follow it. But keywords, I recommend using this for that scenario where it's not as many advisors. There might be just a couple versus if you have like 20, 25 advisors, you've got a pretty hefty office. I would actually use user-defined fields. So again, keywords, think small, user-defined fields, think large. I'll cover both of them though, so don't feel like I'm only covering one topic and then you're going to be lost. So keywords, you're going to be shocked here. It's exactly on how we add as we just did with servicing advisor and writing advisor. So I know I have a couple in here already. And again, this is up to you, just our suggestions. We actually can kind of take it out of alphabetical order if you use a special character like a dash up here. So if you want like those rep codes to be at the top of your list versus it kind of getting mixed in, you definitely can use like that dash to put it at the top. We also just did it like this. I'm going to scroll on down. I know we've got quite a few. Honestly, you don't have to have as many as us. But we actually put it rep code in bold, or not in bold, in caps, and then put the rep code after it. So that way I don't have like K46Y all the way up here, and then we have like N64 somewhere down here, and then the S like all the way at the bottom. We wanted it to all still kind of stick together, so that's why we put that rep code at the top. So again, similar to how we just did writing advisor and servicing advisor, I'm going to add another one here just so again, you could see what it looks like. So I'll scroll back up to the top here, keep going, and then click on add. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to rep code, dash, and then I'm going to do, I made one up here. Let me look at my little cheat sheet. We had G67N, because why not? We'll add that keyword. Now, again, keep in mind with keywords, you're not really limited. It's just if you start to get where you have a lot of services and a lot of different like billing rates that you need to keep track of, or if there's anything in particular, the reason why we suggest having like keywords for small and UDF for those larger offices is just to kind of help organize it again. And you'll see when I build the UDF why I kind of picked that. It's still going to give you a list. But again, if you only have a couple, where this one we only have like 4 in here, keywords are going to be more than sufficient to get you through this, because you can have multiple rep codes attached. Because it's a keyword, you can have multiple keywords attached to a client. So good place to start if you've got a small one, and as you can kind of see, it's very easy. Now, if you typed it in and you had like how I originally typed it, red code, you're like, whoops, that's a typo. Just remember, anything that you've added into the system, that is something that you can edit. So you don't have to like full on delete it and re-add it. Just come in here, edit it, and then fix that typo. I see it all the time where people are like, let me delete it and re-add it. I'm like, oh my goodness, no, don't do that. Just click edit. So definitely, again, keywords, small office. Now, in that scenario where I was listing where we had that good 20, 25 advisors, and that UDF is definitely the way to go. So I'm going to actually scroll back up again until I see the list over here on the right, and I'm going to pick on user-defined fields. So I'm going to go ahead and click on here. And again, if you're pretty newer to your Redtail system and you see nothing in here, that's okay. You don't have to have as many as us. Trust me, we have probably way too much for one sitting, but you definitely can have a couple options. And I'm actually just scrolling down because we do have one built here for rep codes. And we actually picked a list of values. The reason I kind of go towards like the list of values versus that any text field, it kind of limits that typo that we might have it. So that way, if we're attaching that rep code to multiple clients, I'm not accidentally typing, G76N instead of G67N. It just kind of solidifies that, hey, we're going to have that consistent number attached. So slight change on how we would add a UDF versus a keyword in servicing and writing advisor. Still going to be the add button, nothing new there. But with here, we actually have two different options. So if I didn't have a user-defined field for rep code already, this is where I would type in here. And again, if I want it to be at the top, I could probably do something like that. But for that field type, this is where I'm actually going to pick that list of value. Again, you've got multiple different options. By all means, you could do in any text. But if you really are trying to limit the amount of errors you can leave open, I would recommend the list of values, just so that we can come in here, click plus, and then in here, this is where you would fill that like G67N, come in here, add the next person. Might be like L84, whatever, 85, I can read. And then keep going in here and then add that user defined field. So you can have multiple on multiple on multiple. So it's not like you can only have two and then you're like, okay, next user defined field. You really can have many options when it comes to values. True story, actually. We had a client who had 25 advisors in their office. So a pretty good size, definitely not a small, just 1-2 combo type of thing. So we had 25 advisors, but the problem was they had between them all 500 rep codes. Yes, 500 rep codes. And at first they're like, oh, we'll just add it into keywords, which honestly, that's fair. I would probably have started there at first initially, just been like, yeah, that's totally fine. However, they also had services that they had to keep track of. They also had some people who were billed hourly versus at a fee versus they also had some that were billed in arrears, some in advance. So there was just so many keywords already that they were going to immediately come in here and dump 500 more, which would have kind of been a nightmare when you're thinking about it scrolling. So still kind of the same concept with this list. However, all I have to do is specifically look for that user defined field that has rep code, and then I'll have that option of just those lists. So definitely, if you are that scenario where there's multiple advisors and you've got quite a few rep codes between you all, definitely this is the route to go so that way you limit it. And then similar concept, I'm just not going to add that one since again, I already have it. I'm going to come on down here. And again, I can always come in here and edit. So let's say you brought on a new advisor and that advisor has their own set of rep codes that you might need to add in here. You can always come in here and then add to that list or subtract. So if someone leaves, just know that this list can always change. So again, I'm going to add that one I did earlier to that keywords just for consistency on showing you here that either or is an option. And then I'm going to update our user defined field here. So those are the 4 main items I want to discuss as far as under this managed database list. And again, to get there, it'd be your name and then manage your account and then scroll all the way to the bottom and then servicing advisor and writing advisor right at the top here. Add what you wish in terms of those people. And then I would pick between keywords or user defined fields. And then that way you just have that consistency. Now, I do also want to point out, though, if you are a smaller office and you're like, I don't want to put it under keywords, by no means you have to. You can use user defined field if you're a smaller office too. It's really going to be your preference on, hey, what's the best way to organize this for my system? That's going to be the best way to do that. So that's the first part of our rep codes. Now that we've added them in here, I'm sure we've got a couple people who are like, okay, well, if I just added them, how do I add them to a contact and how do I add it to multiple contacts? Because, if you've got a good 1,000 people and you don't want to sit there and go one by one, I don't wish that on anyone. You can do those things in bulk. So I'm going to start on the individual level first, and then we'll go into how to do it in bulk as well. So I'm actually going to start off, I'm going to go ahead and pick a recent contact we've been in, and I'm actually going to pick Clark Kent here. So I'm going to pretend I'm in a scenario where I'm maybe a smaller office and keywords are the way to go for me. So Easiest way to add a keyword individual level is actually go to the contact record like this here, scroll all the way to the bottom until you actually see keywords in tag groups. So from here, this is actually where you can add just on, again, an individual level, that rep code. So I'm going to come over here, click add. I can either scroll until I find it, or if you kind of see at the top here, there's this search, I can just search rep code. Now, again, if you have a scenario where maybe you're splitting the contact, again, kind of that scenario where maybe you have 4 or 5 people splitting it, by all means, you can have multiple rep codes clicked all at once, save it, and then they'll all be added onto that contact in one sitting. Again, keep in mind also when you're adding in a new contact to the record, you can add in keywords immediately. So if you're brand new, coming in here, quick added contact, you're adding in the individual, you've got all that good information up here at that top. I'm going to scroll down though here just so I can point it out. You can add those keywords immediately. So don't feel like it's one of those things that you have to do after. You can, if you know exactly what's going on here, you can add it right then and there and have that information all at once. But again, if it's one of those things, you've already added them and then you're like, whoops, forgot about this. That's okay. You can always come in here and add. And then same kind of concept, maybe I got a little click happy, or maybe advisor's no longer on that situation. You can always remove a keyword on that actual contact. They'll say like, do you want to delete it? And of course, it's not deleting the keyword from the system. It's just deleting it from this particular list for Clark themselves. So that's how to do it on an individual for a keyword. UDF, very, very similar. So instead of clicking on keywords and tag groups, I'm going to click on a UDF right here. So I can actually just take a quick look. I don't see that the rep code's been added, but if I wanted to add a rep code to this one, if I didn't go the keywords route, I can come over here and click add. It'll ask which user-defined field I want to go with. And I'll scroll and scroll until I see rep code. I'll go ahead and pick on here. And then if I have it where I'm like, okay, G67N needs to apply, add that UDF. Now, the one thing that's a little bit different in terms of keywords and UDFs here, if there's multiple rep codes that we need to add, we just have to come up here and click add and then basically do the same process. But again, I'll show you how to do things in bulk. So if you know for a fact there's multiple contacts, maybe it is one of those kind of like shared list of clients, we'll show you how to do that. So in here, I've attached those 2 rep codes for that user-defined field. Again, so that's one option, or keywords. So that's how to add them on an individual level. Perfect, again, if you're just adding a new contact, or if you just maybe converted a prospect into a client. Easy way to do that, just on a 1-2 click combo. Again, if you've got bulk though, which is probably if you're starting out new and you're implementing this, a good chunk of your clients, the best way to do it is actually going to be for keywords through an advanced search, or actually even for UDFs as well. So what I'd kind of recommend here is implementing that search with that servicing advisor. So if I have, maybe I want to find out, hey, who are all my contacts who have, let's see, equal to Becca. We can just see if Becca has any contacts in here that have that servicing advisor field equal to Becca. So I can run this list and I get 6 contacts. So in here, this is where I can actually come in, highlight all 6 of these records, come over to contact options on the right-hand side, scroll down until I see bulk actions at the bottom, and then this is where you can actually assign keywords. So in here, again, if you didn't make the keywords from scratch yet, you could actually do that here. But if I wanted to go on down, look in here, if I wanted to add, this keyword, maybe also we'll make them this rep code as well. I can assign all of those keywords in bulk to those contact records all in one sitting. So that's one option, is definitely going for those servicing advisors. You could do the same kind of concept from writing advisor if you want to do it that way. Just a quick search, you'll get that as well. The other item, actually, no, let me just see here. Writing advisor equal to, let's see if Dusty has any. We'll do kind of a similar search. Oh, beautiful. Actually, I have 51 for him. So I'm actually going to highlight this. And again, out of good habit, if you've got multiple contacts and it starts to get into like a good double, triple digits, Always click this one. Basically, the best way to view that is that, hey, I only have X amount of contacts that load on a one page, but I want all of them that are applicable. That's what this is doing. It's just clicking all of those on like page 2, page 3 type of thing. So I highlight all of them, come over to contact options again on the right, bulk actions. Instead of adding a keyword this time, I'm actually going to scroll to the bottom, and that's where user defined field's going to be. So again, keep in mind this is alphabetical. So we're not going all crazy here. User defined field's always going to be at the bottom. This is where we can go ahead and highlight in here. Hey, I have a rep code. For these particular rep codes, Dusty has the rep code of this particular one. Assign that UDF, and then that's, looks like we might have multiple of us in here. Let me rerun the search here real quick, guys. This is what happens. We have too many trainers in here at the same time. So you shouldn't run into this problem. But if you do, just rerun the search real quick, come back down to bulk actions, come on down to user defined fields again, select UDF, find that rep code, come in here, G667 or G67N, assign that UDF, there we go. Now we're golden. And now that UDF is attached to those 51 records. So either or, no matter what, that bulk option's always gonna have assigning a keyword in bulk as well as a user defined field in bulk. So either option, but again, your best bet is gonna be from one of those searches. Now, if you are going that keyword route and you are curious, you're like, okay, who are all of those contacts who have, that particular rep code equal to this one as that particular contact. So you can search by keywords in advanced section here. So if we come on down here, there's going to be contact keywords for that type. Our field is going to be keyword. I love this particular setting because I don't have to think, it's one option. Come on over here, click equal to for our operand, and then for our value, that's when I'm going to go down and find that particular rep code. So I'm actually going to pick the K46Y, see what I have for this particular one. I have two. Beautiful. I have two contacts here. But then I can also do the same thing if I want the G67N, run that list. I have none on that one. Come over here and just literally keep doing that same process. So if you do have anything where like, you know what, they have this particular rep code, but I need to attach another one based on this, you can just do it for those two with that same bulk action concept. So that's for finding those keywords for all of those particular clients. For any of those that are like, okay, well, Catherine, you said UDFs as well. What about those? That's where reports are actually going to come in. So not so much from the advanced search page. That's really going to be your best bet on bulk assigning as well as kind of just looking for those particular keywords. But for those user-defined field options, we're actually going to go to reports on the left-hand side and then scroll on down until we see UDF reports at the bottom. So come on in here and then contact user-defined fields. So by default, this report is going to have literally every user-defined field, not exactly what we're looking for. What we're going to need to do is actually click that filter on the right-hand side. So we'll click filter. If you have a particular contact where you're like, okay, I want to know, all of Batman's user-defined fields that have that rep code. If you want to run a report that way, you can. Otherwise, you just go to the record itself. But if you leave this blank, it's going to apply for everyone in the database. So it's really that big picture. So user-defined field, again, I'm going to scroll until I find rep code. And then this is where I can find that, hey, all of those rep codes for those contacts have G67N, apply that filter, and then I'm going to get that list of those contacts. So it really is that nice, quick, easy way of saying, oh, hey, these are all the ones that apply to it. Now, same kind of concept, and this is kind of a weird roundabout way if you've never sent to search from a report before. But if we're looking in here and we're like, okay, all of these clients also need to have another rep code, there's not a way to do it bulk directly from here. However, if we use the search option, it's not searching the page, it's actually going to bring us back to a page where we're going to look very familiar. There it is. There's that same option we were on earlier. Select all 52, bring that option, bulk apply again. So even if you start off on that reports for that UDF and you're like, whoops, I also need to add another rep code. I'm not going to do that one by one because I don't wish that on anyone. you can always send it back to search and do something in bulk. So just know that is that even on an actual report, you're not limited to just what's on this page. But the one thing that is also beautiful is that if we needed to export this to like an Excel version, that's where that export button is going to come in. So you really do just have that nice, beautiful report that has, hey, here's all of my clients that have this rep code. Similar kind of concept is that PDF version, same actual list, just PDF edition. So again, keep in mind filters really where you're going to benefit with this particular report. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot of scrolling and just kind of digging for it, which is not exactly helpful. You're going to want to use that filter option. So definitely just keep sure of that. Now, as far as like these rep codes, that's the best way that you're going to be able to do it in terms of being able to search for them, being able to report for them. But again, the one thing I'm going to say is just make sure you're consistent with it. If you find that UDFs are the right that was not English. If you find UDFs are the right direction to go for you in terms of those rep codes, stick with it. Don't do a combination of keywords and UDFs. Otherwise, you're going to have to do two separate things, and that's just a lot of searching. It's kind of just bad data that we're inputting it. So either full on go for keywords and stick with it, or full on go to UDFs and stick with it that way. The last thing I want to actually cover is kind of something I actually glossed over really quickly there, but with those servicing advisors and writing advisors, again, that's going to be your interpretation on how you want to fill it in. But if you do have one of those scenarios where you are a part of that big office, or actually it could even happen in a small office where you're splitting a client multiple ways, and you're like, okay, it is an even split. It's 20, 25, 25, 25, 25, however the case might be. If that happens, you're still going to want to put a servicing advisor and a writing advisor in the spot just because it is the best way to get that search. But if you have it where it is that even split, kind of just our rule of thumb, that's when I would just kind of stick with like an alphabetical back name kind of thing. So like if the advisor is mine, it's the Beltran versus Tucker. This might be kind of the way I would do it, is just then pick the first person's last name then. So then that way it's just, hey, you might not actually be the one that's like the go-to for everything, but just for the sake of having someone in here, we'll go with the first alphabetical last name that makes sense. So not what you have to do, but it could help, again, for that scenario where there is that even split amongst multiple advisors. So just keep in mind that that is an option for you to do. But again, just kind of a recap in terms of how to get yourself going here. Best way, start off by going to your name, manage your account, scroll down for manage database list, individually look at those contacts, add it that way individually if you'd like, again, either keyword or UDF, as well as adding those servicing and writing advisors on the individual level. And then again, bulk options, always an option from advanced search. For keywords, you can always search from them this way, and or reports, you can pull up those user-defined fields.
Thanks so much for joining us today for this particular session. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give us a call at 800-206-5030, option 3 for support, or just shoot us an email over to support@redtailtechnology.com. Thanks a lot and have a great day.